Everyone, welcome back to the Unarmored Talk podcast. I'm your host, Mario P. Fields. For the first time listener and viewers, welcome. And again, if you've been with me for the past 5 years, I appreciate your continued support. Today on the Unarmored Talk podcast, I have a veteran, and he's amazing. United States Army. Don't hold it against them, those Marines out there. I'm not. Matter of fact, he's retired colonel, so I'm going to go ahead and salute him and report all troops are present and accounted for, but he's got 26 years of service in commanding military police units and more at Fort Bragg. You guys know that is a huge fort in beautiful North Carolina. And he's also got an extensive business background. He's a co-owner of One True North Leadership and has oversees 8 companies, about 2,000 plus employees, and lots of recognitions. But I'm going to let him tell you all a little bit about yourselves. And before I bring Paul on the virtual stage here, go Navy, beat Army. Paul, what's up, man?
Well, let's change that around. Yeah, just a correction. I'm actually the owner of 5-Star Leader Development. I used to own One True North, and then that morphed into 5-Star Leader.
Nice,
and so that's been in existence since 2003 or
wow.
2023. Yeah.
Wow. That is cool. So what else can listeners and viewers know about you before we jump into the show, to the actual topic?
I grew up in California and went to Santa Clara University on a ROTC scholarship. That's how I got into the Army, and I got my degree in finance, but to me that wasn't exciting enough. So I asked the Army what could I go into that was exciting on an everyday basis, and they said, "Well, you ought to be a military police person." And so I joined the military police corps, and after 4 years, the Army came back to me and said, "We paid all this money for you to get a finance degree. Now we're going to send you to Syracuse to get your MBA, and then you're going to come back as a controller." And I did a tour as that, and in between there, I was doing law enforcement work,
Wow.
and then the tour in the Pentagon as a comptroller introduced me to Capitol Hill. I worked in the Defense Intelligence Agency as a budget officer and had to defend the Defense Attaché's budget before the Senate and House Intel Oversight Committee staff. And so that gave me a lot of exposure to Capitol Hill, and that led to future assignments. And eventually I had about 8 years on Capitol Hill as a legislative liaison for Department of Defense. And then I commanded at the brigade level military police paratroopers out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Retired from that and was recruited by a large government corporation to start a $500 million contract, which evolved into starting a company for them. And then that evolved to leading several companies for them, and then retiring from that after 14 years. And I was in Washington, D.C. at the time, and decided to come back to California. My parents were alive at the time, and my siblings were out here, and I was single, and came back out to California and said, I'm too young to just sit and play golf. I want to do something important and passionate and give back to the community. So I started an executive coaching company at that time, and have been doing that since. Started it right before the pandemic, and then that evolved into 5-Star Leader Development in 2023.
Wow. 5-Star Leader Development. And before I even have this unarmored discussion, and because I believe this is going to be super helpful, not just for me, but others. Thanks for your continued service. I mean, 26 years is already one commitment, a lifelong commitment to, I believe, protecting our nation's most precious jewel called freedom. And then for you to make the choice to continue to serve. And all right, so I salute you for that. And so let's get into it. One thing that I see often is the word inspiration. I notice we have character, purpose, vision, and action, and then inspiration in the 5-Star leader development. How have you helped people understand the behaviors associated with inspiring people?
What a great question. And I haven't gotten that a lot because people transpose inspiration with motivation. And,
Hmm.
as you know, even, and I was I consider myself partial Marine. I went to the Marine Corps Command and Staff College, and all my Marine buddies were there. But, we often talk in service language about motivating people. And
Hmm.
really motivation is self-derived. I mean, you have to be motivated to do something. What leaders do is inspire you to be self-motivated.
Mm.
So it's really understanding emotional intelligence. How do you connect with people? How do you get to what does motivate them and then trigger that behavior to achieve something that would be extraordinary? So the inspirational piece, and it doesn't mean you have to be a cheerleader or a rah-rah. I'm not advocating that. It just means that you have to understand the individual that you're dealing with as a follower, and what will get them motivated to accomplish something, and then you have to inspire them to do that. And it's a true
Yeah.
focus about making that emotional connection between the leader and the follower.
And Paul, love the way you explained the fundamental difference between motivation and inspiration.
Hmm.
I believe from my experience of seeing folks in different management positions that they did not understand the fundamental difference between motivating people and inspiring them. And the key thing I love how you said is you got to get to know people and the
Right.
emotional intelligence behind that. When you have a coach or someone that maybe you start to see that they really may not be high in the active listening category, or maybe they have low empathy, which is fine, but you start to see that. How do you help them gain a better understanding that maybe they may be lacking in some of those soft skills?
Yeah, there was a great movie with Robert Redford about the horse whisperer. I don't know if you saw
Mm,
that, but he had this magic with any horse and either being able to connect with them or talk to them. And
yeah.
but it was related to the connection, and it's the same with an executive coach and a principal, whether it's a CEO or a COO. I've got to work hard first to make the emotional connection, and that emotional connection means that whoever I'm working with has to trust that what I'm doing in terms of developing them is best for them. It's
Hmm.
not best for me. And that they then will translate some of my comments or actions or activities that I induce that would be best for them. And especially when it comes to those that may be low in emotional intelligence, a lot of times it's a self-awareness, uh, and what we have to do is focus on helping them be self-aware of what their impact is in terms of behavior and actions. And frankly, for some it could be very quickly accomplished, and others it takes time. And especially when the older you get and the more routinized you get in your leadership style, it's hard to break, and yet it does need to be broken. And that's oftentimes that is where people may get stuck, going to the next or leveling up, is that they
Hmm.
become so routinized in a leadership style that they can't break it and get into a new leadership style. And when and if they can, they'll find that their productivity in terms of inspiring their people to do something in terms of accomplishment would be really significant.
Paul, you're listening to you, and thank you. You remind me of, and he's not gonna like I said this on this episode, but I was one of those people about 7 years ago, and I got this random a message on LinkedIn from my close friend, Dr. Jerry Washington, and he
Hmm.
said, "You have a critical flaw in the way you think," and and it hurt. So the reason why I brought this up because have you ever had a client um, that they started to self-reflect, and you mentioned self-awareness, and they said, "Man, this sucks. Like this hurts. This is not fun." And but that's part of it. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I've been at this a while now, so I've gotten a lot of comments, and some of the comments, just obvious comments. Well, why didn't I think of that?
Hmm.
Well, because you're blocking in some areas. Other ones in, like a light bulb going off. I was doing a SWOT exercise with the CEO the other day, and he got stuck on the threat portion of it. So a SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it's part of an analysis in terms of your business and where you want to go. And you need to, in generalization, look at those four factors. And so I said, well, let's look at the threat factors. And he said, well, the competition's a threat. I said, competition's not a threat. I mean, you're going to compete in the marketplace. I mean, so everything can't be a threat in the marketplace. That's
Hmm.
part of your operating environment is competition. Now it's how do you beat it? But I said, here is a threat. What happens if something happens to you and your company?
Right.
And it was like a light bulb went off. I said, I never thought of that. I said, well, do you have a succession plan? No. All right. So if you were uh, happen to have an accident or something and not able to come to work for 2 months, what happens to your company? And so it's things like that that people, again, we get so involved in today's
Mhm.
activities from a business standpoint operationally. Let's fix this today, and it's going to have an impact tomorrow. Well, what about long term? What does a company look like 3 years from now? And what's your role in it? What happens if something happens to you? How do you overcome those things? And it's you know, great principles. And these are all principles learned from the military. I mean, you know this. Sergeant major, you and I are both expendable, right? On a battlefield, we are. We like to think we aren't, but guess what? If something happened to you on the battlefield, sergeant major, you know what? There's going to be another non-commissioned officer who's going to fall in right behind you.
You best believe.
Same with me. If something happened to me on the battlefield as a colonel, there's going to be someone who falls in right behind me.
They're flying
And
them in from Reagan, flying them
yeah,
in from
right,
DC.
the mission's going to continue. Well,
Yeah.
that was ingrained in us
Yeah.
is that you always have to teach two levels below you. Uh, Marines did the same thing. I always focused on two levels below me and developing them because if something happens in between, they can fleet up. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Businesses, aren't exposed to that same level of leadership and understanding of leadership. So this gets back to what you were saying. Yes, I mean, it was like a light bulb going off, and those are the fun moments for me is just being able to help them think through, how do you protect and preserve your business, and then watch the light bulbs go off. And I do it generally with just penetrating questions like that. Well, what would happen to your company if something happened to you? Hmm.
Paul, you just remind me of when I was on active duty, especially when I was a regimental sergeant major. I used to tell the sergeants major that we are the least important people in our units. And like these, and they will
Yeah.
look at me like, "You're sergeant major," and I'm like, "Yeah, right." And they can fire me, and they'll have another. They can put a monkey in the seat, But
Yeah.
but like you were saying, let's think layers beyond you, and I love your approach. Where it's very calm, and where
Hmm.
where that CEO in that SWOT analysis at the T, which is the last portion of it, that could be very stressful, very
Hmm.
lots of anxiety, lots of stress, you know, maybe some self-doubt in your approach to, I call it metaphorically, getting those
Right.
seatbelt signs off. Now, I mentioned Dr. Washington. That was one of my moments where the finger went this way, and it really helped me develop with self-awareness like you mentioned, and take a deeper look at myself, learn some new things, some challenge some biases, and then improve. Have you ever had a moment? I know you've had a few moments, but can you think of a moment where it was Paul. Paul, you have a critical flaw in the way you think.
Oh God, yes.
Come on, Paul, give it to me, man.
Okay. Well, it was the worst ass chewing I ever got. And I thought I was riding high. And this was actually during Desert Storm.
Oh,
I was the S3 for the MP brigade, and I loved my brigade commander, Colonel Larry Brady, and just a super guy. And we were planning our movement with the offensive movement, and we had 5 military police battalions. And so my job, of course, was put together the op
yeah.
plan for the movement of forces, and so I did it, and I thought it was perfect. I mean, it was just the my ego didn't escape me. I thought this thing was perfect, and so he said we're going to set. We were out in the desert too, so in 10H. He said,
Mm.
I want you to brief the battalion commanders on their roles and responsibilities according to the op order. I went just like this, gave the thumbs up. You got it, boss. I mean, I was hyped up. I was very exercised. This was a big deal and everything else. And gave him one of this. Went at the briefing. I was telling those battalion commanders, this is what you're going to do here, here, and here. He was emotionally intelligent enough not to chew my ass out in front of him, but he pulled me aside afterwards and he says, "Who the hell do you think you are?" I I said, "What do you mean, sir?" I said, "You told me to brief this." He said, "I'm the brigade commander. You don't tell battalion
Paul.
commanders anything." I mean, you can advise them that this is the op plan, but you were directing them in that meeting. I and I mean, oh God, I was just shocked. But uh, did I learn a lesson from that? I absolutely did.
Paul,
And that may have been my first emotional intelligence lesson I learned is get your shit together before you do something like this and think of who your audience is. And
Paul, you got me. Hey, yo, if you guys watching, if you guys are, if you're not, if you listen to this episode, you got to get on the YouTube channel and watch it. I mean, the whole time Paul is saying that, I'm smiling. He's smiling. I can just imagine as a sergeant major sitting there next to the battalion commander,
uh,
going, "Who in the
yeah,
what? You will?
yeah, yeah.
What was your rank?"
I was a major. I was a major at the time. Telling lieutenant colonels, this is what you're going to do. And the brigade commander's sitting right in the room with us. I mean, the battalion commanders had their staffs with them, their planning staff. The brigade commander was there. I had my staff with me, and yeah, I was just king of the world, directing them here and there until afterwards. Oh man, what a and I appreciate Larry today, but I mean, just what a great lesson in humility, one, and two, in emotional intelligence, knowing your audience. And I
Dude,
got it wrong that day. But
dude,
but you know what, Mario? I never got it wrong since.
see, that's everyone, and that's the point.
Right.
Do you reflect and learn new behaviors?
Yeah. Right.
Dude, that is Paul. That's one of the funniest. Man, my head hurts, man. That is, I could only, I could just imagine you sitting in I just can't. Dude, I'm just sitting there, imagine sitting there next to my battalion commander, and the major's like, "Hey, all right, bring it in, team." Team,
Yeah.
who is this guy? All right. All right, here's the deal. This is what you're going to do, and here's the op plan, and
Yeah.
and you're going to do this. And hey, battalion commander, yeah, yeah, major. This,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
oh, I can have you on this show forever, but you know the deal, and everyone knows how I roll. I gotta let you go here soon. But wonderful tips. Looking back on your lifelong journey of a commitment to serve other people. If you had to give yourself one piece of advice before you even started your army career, what would you give yourself?
Hmm. Um, tenacity is it's not an often used word, but tenacity sure has helped me through difficult situations, both,
Mm,
whether in the Army, on deployment, in combat, or even in business. It's just
yeah.
keeping your head on top of your shoulders and not losing sight of the end state. Those
Right.
are, and it's especially today, it's so easy to become distracted with mistruths and um, lose sight of what's really important. And so keeping your focus on just what's really important is what matters. And I could have done a better job of that in my early years, and uh, when I was just very competitive and wanted to win. And it wasn't so much about the entirety of things. I think
Right.
winning's important, and I think being competitive is also very important. But the real lesson is just be focused on the end game, and take care of the little ones. That was always my uh, big thing. Take care of the little ones in the organization, because if you do, the little ones will take care of you.
Well, I love it. Well, everyone, again, we have Paul Raggio, retired colonel and a lifetime of commitment to serve others. Thank you so much. You guys heard it. I mean, 5-star leadership development, and we could have talked about all the other components, but you guys see 20 plus minutes on inspiration and the complexities of it. Follow Paul on LinkedIn, or where else? Where can they find you, Paul, if they want to find you and just follow you?
Yeah, just go to 5starleaderdevelopment.com. That's my website address, and it's all one word. And there you'll see a lot of prompts there. You can message me, or just go to LinkedIn. You'll find me on LinkedIn, and you can connect and message however you want to get in touch. And I would love to, especially vets out there that need help, or even if you're a startup vet with a business and looking at some key principles, business principles on how to grow your business, get in touch with me. I'll be glad to help.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, Paul. I appreciate it. And everyone, you guys know the deal. I will continue to pray for you, the listeners and viewers, family, your friends, and all living beings around you. Take care.
Thanks, Mark.